I first started in 1959. I asked Miss Lane, and she said, well, you go back and ask the folks in the back. And they said, yeah, we think we might like to hire you. Go up and fill out the form upstairs. There was no HR department on campus in those days. My husband and I, we didn't have a telephone. I mean, way before cell phones, but we didn't have a phone, period. So, so Dr. Craig was the librarian then, and he decided he wanted to hire me. But I didn't have a phone for him to get in touch with me. So that Sunday morning, he came by and knocked on the door of my apartment and said, well, you can start to work next week.
I was hired by Hardin Craig Jr. in August 1961. Back then, things were very informal. I came, talked to the head of cataloging, and a week later, I found out I had a job.
When I first came to work here in 1966, I think they didn't have HR at that time, because what I did was I guess I called Dr. Craig, who was the librarian, and said, remember me, I was in your military history class, and now I'm into library school, and don't you think we should renew our acquaintance? So he said, come over, and I did, and he took me by figuratively took me by the hand and strolled me through technical services. And we started in cataloging, and they didn't want me because I didn't know German. So then we went to the order department, and Nancy Booth was the head of the verifiers. And she said, oh, that would be good. And that was it.
Came to Rice University in 1968 as a part-time librarian. I was hired when my husband decided to take a chair at Rice University in the history department. He was the William P. Hobby professor of history, and I was working on a master's degree, had just about finished it in librarianship, and so I was hired as a part-time person. And when I showed up, the first day I was supposed to come to work, nobody knew about it. Only the librarian Richard O'Keefe, was informed. And it was an interesting way to begin a career, but we all got past that.
The whole library was much smaller than it is now, and it was about 20% of the number of staff members that we have at present.
It was really a family feeling to it, because we were just a small staff. There was only one reference librarian. Miss Dean always said, she was the very first librarian, that they didn't need any reference librarians, that the students didn't need any help. There was a card catalog, and that was all the help they needed. So nobody was supposed to give them any help. They were Rice students, they should figure things out for themselves. There was nobody to do book selection. The faculty did it all.
When I first came to the library, we were still in the manual age. All the cards for the card catalog were ordered from the Library of Congress. The books that the Library of Congress had not cataloged were cataloged in-house, and then we mimeographed the card sets at that time and typed the filing headings on.
We type a mimeograph stencil and put it on this little machine, and every Friday afternoon they'd clear off the marking table and they'd mimeograph those cards, and they'd spread them out to dry over the weekend. Then we got our first photocopy machine. We thought, oh, we were in heaven. We could start Xeroxing those cards.
The card catalog was located out in the front of the library by the circulation desk. And circulation at that time, of course, was still manual.
Circulation, when I first came, they were handwritten cards. I kid you not, handwritten cards to check out a book. And then we progressed to punch cards. Oh boy, that was state of the art. Walk in the front door of the library and you'd see that cark floor, and there were just 2 card catalogs then. I don't know, we probably had 8 or 10 by the time we were through. But anyway, there were just 2 then. And everything was blind wood. And Miss Sarah Lane was in circulation, and she'd stand at that front door. If she saw a girl try to come in the door wearing pants, she'd tell her to get out. She wouldn't let a girl come in wearing pants.
Here is the most interesting thing about the structure of this building, and it is that there was a dumbwaiter in it. People would find a time in their studying when they wanted some light relief. And so they would come over here, or they were already here, they would find the dumbwaiter and put themselves in it, or things, and that was always considered really clever.
The most dramatic event that ever occurred at Fondren was the Great Library Flood of 1966. For some forgotten reason, a huge pit was dug beside the library, and then they knocked a hole into the wall of the basement. It rained overnight and water flooded into the basement. The depth of the water was about 6 inches, and of course it got all the books on the bottom shelves wet. So when the staff arrived the following morning, our first thought was, oh, we can go home, the electricity's off. Wrong. We were given flashlights and sent into the basement to rescue the books. They were brought up to the first floor and set upright in an open position in every available space to dry. Large fans were brought in to help dry the books, and blank newsprint was acquired to interleave the wet pages. At that time, the rare book room was in the basement, and many rare books got wet. Surprisingly, to us at least, the handmade paper of the rare books was less damaged than some of the more modern paper.
I told you the rare book room used to be just a little place, a little room down in the basement. And then when they got a bigger rare book room, they started putting in there anything that had to do with sex. They didn't want the undergraduates reading about sex. So if anything had anything to do with sex, they would put it in the rare book room so it couldn't be checked out. And so it wasn't until the end of the 60s that we could have what someone called sex on the open shelves.